Doc this week is
drum roll. The biggest question we've been asked of me over and over again this week is, how do we test for hormones?
Thanks for joining us. I'm Anna Manuel alongside Dr. Maggie Yu. Everybody's been asking, it is the number one question, exactly how do we figure out what's going on with our hormones? How do we test our hormones?
Okay, so this isn't just like a female problem. This is a men and woman problem. But I think using men as a case study to talk about how many barriers and obstacles men and women face when it comes to getting your hormones tested is a really good example. And I'll use Tyler as an example. You know, when I met him, I believe he was about 27, 28, father of two. And he said in the interview on Tuesday that he didn't have erectile dysfunction. You know, that wasn't the issue. In his years of dealing with Crohn's, with sacroiliitis, osteopenia, he had a lot of diagnoses. He was near his deathbed. And yet at the age, for like at least 5-6 years of dealing with these chronic health symptoms, not one doctor tested his hormones.
And that's criminal. I understand that they don't know, but it is just so disheartening to hear that hormones are not even looked at as it relates to any kind of chronic health issue.
I think there's judgment. I think there's a lot of judgment around men going to ask their doctor to check hormones. Is that a lot of medical providers will have our own bias and think, oh, this guy wants to abuse steroids. This guy wants to get a testosterone prescription, rather than this is a guy who feels sick and who has symptoms that directly link with hormone imbalance that I was never educated in. That's the reality of what's really happening. So in men, we already have judgment, presupposition about that it's only about erectile dysfunction and anabolic steroid abuse, or to really build big muscles or something like that. For women, prejudgment is that doctors, because we have had no training about testing hormones, it's something we don't know about. We're trained as doctors that when there's something we don't know about it, we poo-poo it. Mm-hmm. It's not necessary. Or we'll say the data doesn't show it's necessary. I swear to you, none of them has looked at any of that data.
They just don't know. They're not educated in it.
Well, Elisa is actually a family medicine physician here. So back me up, girl. I'm going to ask you guys in the comment section, how many of you have asked your doctor to check your hormones only to be told that they didn't need to be tested, that it wasn't going to be accurate anyway? Or if you were quote unquote lucky enough to be tested, then we're told that your levels are normal and nothing needs to be done with it. Meanwhile, you have a shitstorm of symptoms that you know are hormonal. Type in the comment section.
Yeah, it's everybody. We're seeing me.
All Christina Lizardo is like, me. Tracy's like, me again, right?
When you mention ignorance, look at Christine's comment. And I know this is something that grinds your gears. Gynecologist gave her low hormones without even testing, saying, you're postmenopausal, this is what you need, as a blanket statement. Here you go. This is what you need.
That's exactly what I was told, Christine. I was told when I hit early menopause at 36, without testing my actual hormones, I did have an FSH test that says, oh, Maggie, you're in menopause. I'm like, but why? And the answer was, well, you're getting older.
At 36.
And I said, I'm 36. I'm not 86, okay? I'm like, dude, no way, right? And so another obstacle to testing is, oh, you're menstruating regularly, therefore you don't need it. Or you have no periods, so we are going to assume they're low, so you don't need it. Or you're a man and you don't have erectile dysfunction, so you don't need to test it, right? These are all not true. If anything, all of those people are displaying signs that they have a hormone imbalance. It's not an all or none. They're making hormones or they're not making hormones. It's that the balance of the hormones they're making is off, and that's what's causing the symptoms. But that's the most common thing is because you have these symptoms, it must be this. You must be making hormones. You must not be making hormones, or you don't need to have your hormones tested. That's another obstacle to people getting their hormones tested. Now, here's the other obstacle though, Anne, and this is going to come up. How many of you guys got your hormones tested and was told that it was normal and there was really nothing that they're going to do about it, right?
Or maybe you had them tested and you were told, oh, they were a little off, but we don't really know what to do with that information. So you've had it tested kind of for a reason now, because we're not an expert and we don't know what to do with that information.
So the obstacle to testing is that then they test your hormones, and then these labs have what we call a normal range over there. The normal range at that lab, just so you guys know, is not even checking, like there's specific times that are best for testing specific situations. So not necessarily even based on the time of the month. if there are cycles. Number two is those are not what we call functional ranges of what's optimal. What you guys don't realize is that functional labs is what's optimal for human function, but what's normal at lab, most of the lab values that you see that are in the normal range is what we call the median 50% at that lab. So I'll just give you an example of men being tested for testosterone. Think about which men actually get their testosterone checked. The men with all the erectile dysfunction that's now at the end point, begging their doctors to finally get it tested. So your average in that group is going to be really low, but yet they're the median 50% of that sick group with end stage symptoms are the ones that are in the normal group. So I have men coming to me with blood levels that are terrible, that have been told by 3 other doctors that they're normal, and they are not normal functional ranges. In fact, they're normal sick range. Here's the key. The key is when we do test hormones is that we want to look at is what's the pattern, the relationship. That's why I call it hormone balance rather than hormone replacement or just hormone therapy. This is about how do we balance the imbalance? What's the relationship between estrogen and progesterone? What's the relationship between progesterone and testosterone? What's the relationship between your adrenal hormones and your ovarian hormones? That is what I'm talking about when it comes to hormone balancing. And yet doctors have zero education on that. And if they have zero education on that, you're shit out of luck, even if they have results sitting right in front of them. Deb Lashbook, actually, who's bringing up a really important question is doctors. The other thing is they're limited on blood versus saliva or urine. And there's multiple ways to test hormones, right? I use all of them and I've used all of them. There's pros and cons to all of them. The interesting thing for me is that blood levels are problematic because they don't test adrenal hormones at all. It's not just your ovary and testicular sex hormones that really matter. The adrenals are what I call, they're working with your ovaries, but after menopause, they're what we call the postmenopausal ovary. So that's what I call it. And so it's working together. And if you don't test half of this equation, we've got a real problem thinking it's just your ovaries that exist by itself. And a one-time check of your ovary hormone might be okay, but you can't do that with adrenals. You got to test it multiple times throughout the day, which is why, Aisha says they do not do saliva tests. I love doing saliva hormone testing, and the reason is I can ship it to anywhere in the world. Okay. Number 2, I can teach anybody anywhere around the world in our programs, right? What that means. Number 3 is saliva hormones are free hormones. They're free active hormones. So you can have someone who does a blood hormone level that looks normal, but then when we actually test their free active hormones, in the shithole. So don't we want to test for the active hormones that we're talking about, right? And then number 4, we want reports and training that's really easy to understand. And that's one of the reasons why urine testing has its challenges. People are like, why don't I just go buy a urine test kit and check it at home and all this stuff? I can tell you that, yes, there is urine testing for hormones and it can test for multiple times during the day. But I want you to look at that. Any of you who's done it, and I have providers who trained to do it. And I was part of a group that was early development of the urine test. And the reports are very, very challenging and difficult, even for providers to understand. So you have no idea how many people have brought me their urine test hormones and were told completely the wrong things from that.
Wow.
So it's not that the test is a bad test. It's a great test, actually. Same with saliva hormones as well. But I personally prefer the saliva hormones because I love being able to teach really difficult concepts in a really easy to read and understandable way that is accurate, that I can ship to anywhere around the world, which is why we do saliva hormone testing. If you're interested in working with me on my hormone masterclass, there's a link here to check out my hormone masterclass and to enroll. I would go ahead and we'll click a link for here to book a chat with our team. Or the other option is there's also an opportunity to start a live chat with a member of our team as well. And they can point you to resources to learn more about our other programs and what solutions